Transition, the process of change from one condition to another.
We are now at a new crossroad where change is evident once again.
What does not serve us must transform us anew.
Returning to our original state of oneness and true nature of that which created who we truly are.
Confusion was the way of the past. Enlightenment is the way of the now and future, shedding away the layers of deceit.
We now bring you the transformation of the two who started as one. Our fearless planet never stands still.
Earth has been in a process of transition, and we are not exempt from this remarkable ongoing reality.
And good afternoon, early evening. Welcome to Transition Radio Show's Real Talk with the Cummings and Ideas. I'm Mark Angelo.
And I'm Lynna. Nice to see you guys tonight. And we just finished our little 4.5 mile walk today. It's been really, really nice out. Hot,
as you can see, are like getting really tan. And today was a short walk. We usually do an average of 9 miles a day.
Oh, yeah.
Usually 9, 11 miles, something like that.
What doesn't kill you makes you strong.
That's right.
And we know that it's going to get really hot here.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to get acclimated to the area's weather.
And there's Marcy. Hey, Marcy, welcome. We're doing great.
Marcy.
We're doing great. In this hot Arizona desert.
Where it is beautiful,
Yes.
sunny. It's colorful. I don't know why people say the desert's dead.
It's not.
I mean, there's so much beauty here.
And so many flowers and fruits and cacti with all sorts of different things. I mean, it's really a nice place. I really, really enjoy it greatly, and enjoy this time of quarantine and isolation. I think it's done us a world of good. It really has. I mean, it allows you to reflect, go inward. I've been meditating more and just really enjoying the new way.
We go on long walks and we just are able just to chat and talk about things that we probably wouldn't talk about any other time, because it gives us time to just, unplug, and, the phone's on because it's tracking our mileage, but that's about all we're doing with the phone at that time. And you don't even bring your phone.
I don't. I do the phone as little as possible. I just use it in the morning first thing just to get my emails and see the comments, and then I just kind of like laze around. Marcy says, I'm jealous. You two look great. Thanks, Marcy. And then she said something else.
She said, you two should hunt for crystals there. Oh, that would be so cool. I don't think our area has crystals, unless probably if you go into the mountains and stuff like that. But the rattlesnakes are warning us, and letting us know that they're around. Yeah. We saw one that got run over.
Yep. And
we've seen so many different molting skins that are left off the side of the road. And
I was going to show. So we do have some.
The rattlesnakes are thriving at this point in time.
We do. I mean, we've collected through our journeys a lot of different, like, little crystal stuff, little rocks type crystals that we've gathered throughout. What's the black one called? Obsidian. And I mean, we have a whole slew of a thing here that we, and one of my favorite things to do, actually.
You got one just today.
Yeah, but I don't know what I did with it. Oh, it must have fallen off.
That happened to me. I had gotten 2 in my white shorts, and they disappeared.
Yeah, this one left. I had it in my pocket. But usually we collect different ones like that. I don't know what happened to the one I had in my pocket. Oh, well. It flew away. Literally. No puns intended.
I mean, I picked up 2 of them.
Put it in my pocket. I guess it must have just... It left. Anyway, but we enjoy, I found a bracelet yesterday when we were walking. That one right there.
Yeah. See that?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
So, it's really enjoyable. I mean, walking is one of my favorite things. Plus, it really does help you lose fat. I've dropped like 2% body fat just from the walking, and you've also,
I've lost about 2% as well and dropped some weight.
Yeah, just walking.
Walking is like the best. The best.
Yes, it is.
You know.
It is definitely. And Marcia said, nice, they're very healing. They definitely are. Amethyst helps my heart palpitation. It's amazing.
Amethyst, that's my birthstone. So.
Yeah. So definitely. I mean, it's nature is just very healing, extremely healing, and that is going to be most of our theme today for our show, talking about the planet and all these corporations. And I laugh because, they pretend to be doing the right thing for the planet, but all they really want is to fill their pocketbooks and their pockets with money and profit. And they use the guise of we're helping the planet,
right?
But as we all know, that's not what they're doing. On the description, I placed a link to a movie called, the name of the
Planet of the Humans.
Planet of the Humans, yeah, and it's a documentary made by Michael Moore. Highly recommended. It's now receiving some controversy though.
Yeah, because environmentalists are taking offense to what's being said and portrayed in the documentary, and I want to be a very, non-biased, person when it comes to this film and the reasons for it. So I would entertain any conversation with it. If there's certain things that have been misrepresented, then I would want to know.
Mm-hmm.
They mentioned something about solar panels and their efficiency as to being kind of like de-emphasized and stuff, and that they're literally they are more efficient than what they've stated in those wind turbines. But it's what is spoken is that the greater message here is that renewable energy is something that has been touted as like the savior for mankind, that this is going to get us on a new path. But what reality is that we have a problem in the world, and renewable energy or any kind of energy isn't going to help that, because renewable energy takes old energy to create it, and also it is just renewable so that we could sustain the current lifestyles that we live. And I don't know if that's what we're aiming to do.
And that's where the problem lies, because it's not about really saving Mother Earth or Gaia. Their quest is to be able to continue to have the lifestyle that they have. And to continue to have that lifestyle, it's consumption. And when you consume, you've got to get it from somewhere, right? The planet cannot compete with the insatiable thirst of materialism that humanity has.
Yeah, it's this overemphasis on being consumers. This country in the United States is a consumer nation. We don't really manufacture much, as we know. We can't even make N95 masks, to help, or cotton swabs, or swabs to go in the mouth or whatever. But the overall emphasis here is the message is that we're on a path to unsustainability. Whether we use solar panels to be unsustainable, whether we use big oil to be unsustainable, whether we're tearing down the forest, whether we're, destroying the deserts, as we found out through this documentary, that they're destroying deserts in order to make solar array panel farms and things. And it's like we're consuming and destroying the planet at a exponential
very
rate.
Alarming rate. Whereas you look back in history, the growth of the human, which I believe is the cancer of this planet compared to the other species, they don't ever replace what they take, and they're taking at a very fast pace, which the planet cannot keep up, and that creates a massive problem.
I mean, we were watching a new, National Geographic, I guess, type of documentary called Our Planet yesterday, just one of the episodes. And one of the important things that we were finding out was how nature helps itself through the animals, through the plants, through the environmental disasters that happen that are natural.
Mm-hmm.
Like even a forest fire will germinate the seeds that would never germinate under the ground had that not happened. And there's a purpose for everything that nature does. What we have a problem with as humans is disrupting the natural focus of what nature does, its cyclical periods and stuff. And we decide that we're going to create our own type of, disruption to that.
Exactly.
And it's usually to profit
Yeah.
from the planet.
Unlike nature, which does things as an orchestrated event that benefits all, we don't do that. We do what benefits us. It's usually corporations, individuals that have some sort of profit guideline that they want to meet for their shareholders. They don't do it for the well-being of the species. They do it for the well-being of lining the pockets of the big wigs. And that's how we run the world, mostly here in the United States.
I mean, there are these green, energy festivals and, awareness days and everything that are touted as being so super environmentally conscious, and, that they're using solar power to power the stage where the musicians and presenters are speaking from. And the fact is that it is not possible yet through renewable energy to provide the type of power that is needed in order to put on even such an event. And they went behind the scenes during this documentary, and they found out that they were using biodiesel generators in order to power the light systems and the grids and power systems and stuff to get the concert or the event to do what it needed to do for the people.
Yeah, and the sad thing is that we're being lied to, and the whole green movement is pretty much laundering of money and just utilizing lies to make people believe that we're much better off. I am sure, though, that there are technologies out there that can fulfill the green market correctly, but it wouldn't make them any money.
Right.
And they're just kind of like scrap this or put it on hold, because big oil doesn't really want to give its reign completely up. They still, because a lot of this stuff, although it appears to be green, they're still using coal and they're still using diesel and they're still using gas to operate a lot of these machineries and things that are supposedly green.
And we've got to understand that this is a recent occurrence. The planet has never had this many humans on it at one time. We're talking almost 7.5 billion people, whereas at the turn of the century there were 700 million or something like that, of like 1900. So all of a sudden the generation that began to just multiply itself back in the 1900s and into the late 20th century and stuff, the baby boomer generation and all that, all of a sudden we discovered fossil fuels, and fossil fuels have greatly enhanced our ability to reproduce on this planet, given us all these conveniences for very little money, and has basically created this overabundance of human life.
Right. But in the same time, how good is this for us? Because if the grid goes off and we're back to primitive ways, how many people will survive? Because a lot of people don't know how to do anything unless it's just pushing some buttons and, things of the modern world. So, how have we been really helped by all of this? If a meteor decides to hit our Earth tomorrow and the grid goes down, what will most people do?
I mean, it's been a great big dumbing down of the human, species, basically. There has not been a time where we have been so technologically advanced, but yet so organically inept, so handicapped in our own planet. I mean, we can't even walk out the door
Mhm.
without rubber shoes on.
Exactly.
There are cultures out there of indigenous, like we were watching the Kogi people of Colombia and the Mamas and everything, those wisdom teachers
Yeah.
of that culture. They're walking through city streets barefoot, because their body is capable of withstanding the harshness of the environment of the world. And here we are grateful for air conditioning.
Yeah. Which
But that's such a new concept.
I know.
I mean, we didn't have air conditioning back 100 years
I
ago.
know. I was watching a video the other day where people that they have like some sort of farmland and they don't wear any shoes and they're out and they're actually you need your feet have like pressure points that helps the rest of your system, and by walking and receiving the energy that Gaia, Mother Earth provides, it helps stimulate your own nervous system. Do we wonder why we're all so very sick and have nervous system problems and all sorts of ailments? Because we are living very artificially. The way we are living cannot be sustainable, not just for ourselves, for our own planet. I mean, something has to give. And I think that this time, this period that we have been facing, has been an eye opener for many people. Many people that have realized, wow, do I really need all this stuff? Do I really need to go to the store 5 times a week?
Yeah, I mean, our current president thinks that we can get rid of certain viruses if you spray Lysol into the body, or you shine a beam of ultraviolet light inside a human organism to sanitize it from, some sickness, some diseased virus that is plaguing the planet right now.
Seriously, that man needs to stop speaking. He really does need to stop speaking. He needs to stop getting involved in giving medical advice. He is not a doctor. He is not a licensed doctor to give out medical advice. He should stick to what he knows, and that's finances. And I don't really think that that's what constitutes a president, just financial matters. He's not, to me, he's not fully equipped to be doing that job, but that's just my opinion. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and read an article, Planets of the Human. This was a movie that was directed by Jeff Gibbs and produced by Michael Moore. Again, the link is down below, but this is a very interesting article that talks about the delusion-shattering documentary on how the environmental and green energy movement have been taken over by capitalists. Have you noticed that capitalists love to do that? They see an idea, they can make money out of it. And it's like everything that starts out pure gets tainted by the capitalistic way.
Yeah.
I mean, that's everything. That's from religion to you name it. So,
And by the way, it's available free.
yeah, it's
to
free. And on the link,
stream.
the link is down in the description area, and we highly recommend that you watch it. So we remember, well, the first Earth Day, and I do, because I was really excited. I was back in my awakening, and there was this big thing in the Hollywood Park. Mary Ann's brother, Philip, had helped to organize the event, including the big celebration on the mall in Washington, D.C. So we had plenty of advance notices of its significance, and we enthusiastically joined the crowd in New York City's Union Square Park.
In the 50 years since, we have remained committed to environmental causes, attending more rallies, making donations to various organizations divesting from fossil fuels with our investments, and participating in recycling and other projects. Like others, we've hailed the rise of green energy options like solar and wind power, and we've read and reviewed the books and the documentaries by environmental activists.
Watching this documentary, written, directed, and produced by Jeff Gibbs, a lifelong environmentalist and executive produced by award-winning documentary filmmaker and social prophet Michael Moore, we realized that what we've been doing is not enough. In fact, what all of us have been doing may not be enough. The film opens up with on-the-street interviews with a variety of people, asking them how long they think humans have on Earth. And this is the very, very serious question.
Gibbs asked his own questions. Have you ever wondered what would happen if a single species took over an entire planet? Maybe they're cute, maybe they're clever, but lack a certain self restraint. What if they go way, 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 way too far? How would they know when it is our time to go? Sobering questions, especially in the light of the delusion shattering information to come in the next 2 hours.
Let's start out with the promise of green energy, embraced by President Barack Obama, airline owner Richard Branson, philanthropist Michael Bloomberg, 350.org founder Bill McKibben, and the Sierra Club and other environmental organizations, and a large percentage of the public.
Electric cars, solar panels, wind turbines were to be the alternatives to our reliance on fossil fuel. But it hasn't turned out to be that simple. An electric car is charged from an outlet powered by the local company that relies on coal and natural gas. A site for wind turbines in Vermont requires that a forest be cut down, a mountaintop removal similar to what is seen in coal country.
In an upsetting sequence, we see all the materials that have been to be mined, transported, and processed to make solar panels. And still, both solar and wind power requires a backup system for rainy and windless days, which turns out to be power generated by burning fossil fuels. Gibbs asks, can machines made by industrial civilization save industrial civilization? It almost makes no sense. It's like, okay, we're going to give you this other option, but we're still using some of this other stuff. And in the end, it may not be reliable because if there's no sun, no wind, then you're out of luck,
When solar and wind did not provide the answer, biomass became the energy alternative, most often burning of wood chips made from trees and waste wood, like old railroad ties. But just because trees can be planted and harvested, does that make them a sustainable form of energy? What about the fuels used to power the machines, cutting down the trees and converting them into chips?
And not to mention, trees provide oxygen, allows for the exchange of carbon dioxide, things of that nature. We start cutting down the trees in the rapid number that we're doing, creates a lot of problems. Nevertheless, environmental leaders have jumped on the biomass bandwagon. Bill McKibben, having noted that tree grows much faster than the 1,000 of years it takes to make coal or oil, is shown speaking at a stockholder meeting about how biomass must happen everywhere. Robert Kennedy Jr. and Al Gore, both known for their environmental stance, are also defenders of a sustainable solution.
One of the few opposing voices is Indian activist and anti-globalization author Vandana Shiva, who says, quote, "We are talking about the old oil economy trying to maintain itself now through another raw material, the green planet. The big crisis of our time is that our minds have been manipulated to give power to illusions. We shifted to measuring to growth, not in terms of how life is enriched, but in terms of how life is destroyed."
With plenty of examples to back up his argument, Gibbs posits that we are turning what was left of nature into profit, whether we're burning trees, killing animals to render their fat for use as liquid fuel. And we watched a part of the document that showed that very disturbing, or harvesting seaweed and algae to fuel Navy ships. The natural world has become just another product in the profit-making system as leaders join boards and endorse various strategies. The takeover of the environmental movement by capitalists is complete.
Planet of the Humans may seem to be an odd choice of a film to release on Earth Day, an annual feel-good event that is usually associated with celebrations of the planet, excursions in nature, and lots of speeches about how much good is happening. We don't like to think about the negative and shadow sides of the environmental movement. But Gibbs says,
I truly believe that that path to change comes from awareness. That awareness alone can begin to create the transformation. There is a way out of this. We humans must accept the infinite growth of a finite planet is suicide. We must accept that our human presence is already far beyond sustainability and all that implies.
we must take control of our environmental movement and our future from billionaires and their permanent war on planet Earth. They are not our friends. Less must be the new more. And instead of climate change, we must long at last to accept that it is not carbon dioxide molecules destroying the planet, it's us. It's not one thing, but everything we humans are doing. A human caused apocalypse. If we get ourselves under control, all things are possible.
And that's the name of the game, really. It's not about creating all these things that require more destruction of other things and more purchasing. It's us tailoring our materialistic hunger and constant need for gadgets. What we need is a spiritual practice of reverence, radical respect for the earth and all the beings, animate and inanimate, upon it. All the spiritual traditions have taught and recognized that reverence is a transformational practice both for individuals and societies. Thomas Berry, a Catholic priest, a historian of religions, and a geologian, put it wisely in his classic book, The Dream of the Earth.
The change that is taking place on the earth and in our minds is one of the greatest changes ever to take place in human affairs. Perhaps the greatest, since what we are talking about is not simply another historical change or cultural modification, but a change of geological and biological, as well as psychological order of magnitude. We are changing the earth on a scale comparable only to the changes in the structure of the earth and of life that took place during some hundreds of millions of years of earth development.
While such an order of magnitude can produce paralysis of thought and action, it can, we hope, also awaken in us a sense of what is happening, the scale in which things are happening, and move us to a program of re-inhabiting the earth in a truly human manner. It could awaken in us an awareness of our need for all the living companions we have here in or on our homeland planet. To lose any of these splendid companions is to diminish our own lives.
To learn how to live graciously together would make us worthy of this unique, beautiful blue planet that evolved in its present splendor over some billions of years. A planet that we should give over to our children with the assurance that this great community of the living will lavish upon them the care that it has bestowed so abundantly upon ourselves.
You know, I don't understand how these individuals don't look at the bigger picture. It's like, okay, it's like a virus or like some sort of bacteria that it literally destroys the host. It's like, aren't you thinking what you're doing here? You need the host to move on, to actually continue to live, but it's like it destroys the host. And that's what a lot of these capitalists are doing. They don't realize that all this money, I mean, you can't eat money. How rich can you really get? How much stuff can you really buy? If you don't have air to breathe, you're messed up.
You know, the thought process that goes into imagining that instead of sucking fossil fuels from beneath the ground or fracking it and then sucking it out.
Mm-hmm.
And in exchange of that, doing something less damaging to the environment would be to knock down full stands of forest all around the planet as being some wonderful concept of conservational thought. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. You know, everyone knows that a forest has a capacity to regenerate itself and to grow again. That's the beauty of nature. That's the beauty of planet Earth and Mother Earth and what she does to restore and replenish herself over and over and over. You know, you could see that in harvesting it from an apple tree, you know, how all those apples come and then the tree goes dormant and then it comes back to life again, flowers bloom, and then the process begins again. But if we keep cutting down at a faster rate than the planet can replenish itself, we're left with a planet with no resources for anybody or no beneficial biodiversity for everything else that lives on this planet. We are not the only ones here.
Exactly.
The birds are here. You know, the bears are here. The
All the
beautiful
insects,
types of wildlife are all here, and we share the resources with them. So we shouldn't be cutting down entire groves of trees in order to make wood chips, in order to fuel an incinerating trash plant. I mean, it's like
for toys, because they're not even things that we need. They're things that we end up wanting just because we can, you know. And it's like, that's not how we lived centuries ago. You know, that's we didn't get here by doing what we're doing now.
right.
If our ancestors would have lived the way that we're living now, we wouldn't be here. You know, we would have blown ourselves up, and that's, you know, it's crazy. So a lot of people probably, I didn't know about biomass energy until we actually watched this documentary. And so the big question here is it really green or is it dirty? You know, and the conversion to biomass energy has played a key role in reducing our dependence on fossil fuel. But is this renewable energy source really as green as we first thought? I mean, when we watch some of the clips of how they're just like destroying Joshua trees, and they're just incinerating everything, and just like from animals being put alive in this kind of grinder so they could get their fat. I mean, I don't get it. You know, it really is very disturbing. In my humble opinion.
So Marcy says, this is why the gods left us. We are vile creatures to this earth.
Yeah, we're like a walking cancer, I think. I mean, everything else has their rhyme and a reason. They all work together. You know, even in cases where certain animals may be attacking one another, but there's a reason behind it. You know, we just do it out of greed, you know.
I gotta slide it over so I can read. Okay. In May 2019, the UK went an entire fortnight without using any coal to generate electricity. The last time this happened, Queen Victoria was on the throne. From having had its first coal-free day in the summer of 2017 to recording its first coal-free week in May of 2019, the UK has done an impressive job of weaning itself off of the dirtiest fossil fuel.
But as environmentalists cheer the good news and policymakers give themselves a pat on the back, a terrible truth has come to light. Biomass power plants, a key renewable energy source, and one of the main replacements for coal-fired power, are emitting more carbon dioxide from their smokestacks and the coal plants they have replaced. In its haste to get rid of coal, the UK may have inadvertently made global warming worse. And that's usually the case. You know, they think they're finding a solution for a problem, and then they're creating more of a problem.
Yeah, there were, like, during that documentary, they were visiting different locations where they were touting the closing of a certain old coal refinery, coal plant, and they were saying, oh, it's wonderful that we don't have to be dependent on that type of dirty energy anymore. But in its place, they were just using another fossil fuel, which is natural gas. Mm-hmm. And they were emitting all these toxins into the air, even in a greater manner, because the the plant was even bigger than the old coal plant.
Exactly.
The logic behind biomass energy is simple. Trees and plants absorb carbon dioxide from the air, use photosynthesis to isolate the carbon, and then use it to build tree trunks, bark, and leaves. But when the plant dies, it rots down, and much of the carbon is released back into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. When we use biomass as an energy source, we are intercepting this carbon cycle, using that stored energy productively rather than it just being released into nature as nature knows best to do, I would say, explains Samuel Stevenson, a policy analyst at the Renewable Energy Association in London.
Now, as we all know, burning fuels releases carbon from geological reservoirs, which would have remained locked up for many millions of years if left untouched. So switching from fossil fuels to biomass energy seemed like an obvious way for European Union's nations to meet their obligations under the Paris Climate Agreement, which was signed in 2016. Back in 2009, the EU committed itself to 20% renewable energy by 2020 and included biomass on the list of renewable energy resources or sources, categorizing it as a carbon neutral, quote unquote. Several countries embraced bioenergy and started to subsidize the biomass industry. And notice it's all about subsidizing. It's all about money. It's all about, there's always an agenda, you know?
Currently, around half the EU's renewable energy is based on biomass, and this figure is likely to rise. Currently, the benefit of biomass is that it can be implemented rapidly and uses the current energy infrastructure, says Nicholas Scott Benson, an expert on energy systems based at the University of Copenhagen in Denmark. In the UK, the Drax Group has led the way with this green and leafy energy revolution. Over the last decade, the Drax coal-fired power station in North Yorkshire, which produces around 5% of Britain's electricity, has seen 4 of its 6 generating units being converted to run on biomass. Today, Drax generates around 12% of the UK's renewable electricity, enough for 4 million households.
So there's a massive operation. Standing next to the train track at Drax in September of 2019, I watched as 25 wagons of wood pellets were slowly disgorged into one of the 4 Albert Hall-sized storage domes. My guy told me that most of the pellets are made from the sawmill residues and waste left over by managed forestry in the US and Canada. This can include treetops and limbs, mishaps and diseased trees not suitable for other use, and small trees removed to maximize the growth of the forest. Virtually every day shipments arrive in the port at Immingham Hall, Newcastle of Liverpool, each carrying around 62,000 tons of wood pellets, enough to keep the boilers going for 2.5 days. Unloading the ship takes 3 days and requires 37 freight train journeys.
You might think that the greenhouse gas emissions associated with transporting the pellets over such a vast distance must be huge, but I'm told they make up a surprisingly small proportion of the supply chain emissions. As long as wood fuels are transported by ship, the distance doesn't matter too much, says Scott Benson.
The size of the operation at Drax is absolutely staggering. In just under 2 hours, an entire freight train's worth of wood pellets goes up in smoke. Although I know that the pellets are made from sawdust and forest thinnings, I'm still struck by how colossal the demands for timber must be in order to produce leftovers on this scale. However, Drax says that by creating a market for timber waste, it is helping to prevent deforestation. Using the low-grade material for wood pellets provides the landowners with additional incomes, making their land more profitable and helping to incentive them to maintain and improve the forest rather than using the land for something else, says a spokesperson for Drax.
So if we hear that last few sentences, it's like it's all about money.
That's all it is.
It's all about making it worth the while of the landowners
Mhm.
to get more income
Yes.
and not use it for more destructive purposes. Or that's what I'm understanding.
Right.
According to Drax, the decision to move from coal to biomass has slashed the plant's CO2 emissions by over 80% since 2012. In that time, we moved from being Western Europe's largest polluter to being the home of the largest decarbonization project in Europe, writes Will Gardner, chief executive of Drax Group, on the company's website.
However, those calculated savings rest in a few key assumptions. First, that the carbon released when wood pellets are burned is recaptured instantly by new growth. Second, that the biomass being burned is waste that would have released carbon dioxide naturally when it's rotted down. But are those assumptions right? I think we have somebody or something.
Advocates of biomass energy claim that when forests are harvested sustainably and the timber industry thinnings are used as fuel, the smokestack emissions are canceled out by the carbon absorbed by forest regrowth. However, some scientists say that this carbon accounting simply does not add up. Wood energy, bioenergy can only reduce atmospheric CO2 gradually over time, and only if harvesting the wood to supply the biofuel induces additional growth of the forest that would not have occurred otherwise, says John Sturman, an expert on complex systems at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, in the US. Really smart guy. The time needed for regrowth to mop up the additional CO2 is known as carbon debt payback time, and it is this that is hotly disputed.
So, Sturman, who is keen to point out that his bioenergy research is independent and it's funded neither by the forestry or bioenergy industry nor by environmental groups, says he was initially optimistic about biomass energy. The climate crisis is so dire that when we began our work, I dearly hoped that wood would prove to be part of the solution, he says, but the more he looked into it, the more concerned he became.
Do you want to read it? What species of taro has the
Vamoose binding lectins.
that are supposedly good at fighting viral infections? I don't know if I should be getting colocasia as I don't.
What species
Sorry,
of
it's
taro?
above where we're at with this article.
I know.
I don't know.
I'm not quite sure what
Yeah.
species of taro.
I'm sure there's a scientist out there who would understand what your scientific wordings
but,
are.
Welcome, Moondog, anyway. So, so using a life cycle analysis, modern Sturman and his colleagues calculated the payback time for forests in the eastern U.S., which supplies a large share of the pellets used in the UK, and compared this figure to the emissions from burning coal. Under the best case scenario, when all harvested land is allowed to regrow as forests, the researchers found that burning wood pellets creates a carbon debt with a payback time of between 44 to 104 years. Because the combustion of processing efficiencies for wood are less than coal, the immediate impact of substituting wood for coal is an increase in atmospheric carbon dioxide relative to coal. This means that every megawatt hour of electricity generated from wood produces more carbon dioxide than if the power station had remained coal-fired.
Sturman stresses that he is not advocating a return to burning coal. Coal and other fossil fuels use must fall as soon and as fast as possible to avoid the worst consequences of climate change. But there are many ways to do that, with improving energy efficiency being one of the cheapest and fastest.
However, biomass energy advocates say that Sturman's carbon debt is a fallacy created by assessing the forest stand by stand, referring to a group of trees planted at the same time as they're harvested a few decades later, rather than viewing it at the landscape level. What actually happens is that one part of the forest is harvested typically 3 to 4%, while the rest of it grows. Typically, net growth after harvesting is about 0.7 to 1% per year, supported by active forest management, says Stevenson in London.
But Sturman argues that the opposite is actually true. Harvesting one part of a growing forest does not cause trees miles away to grow even faster, he says. The trees harvested for bioenergy would have continued to grow, thus removing more CO2 from the atmosphere. The faster a forest is growing, the greater the future carbon storage is lost.
It had been assumed that young trees mop up more carbon than old ones because they are fast growing. But recent studies have revealed that ancient woodland growing in temperate regions take up more CO2 than young plantations. This is because in some cases, growth accelerates with age and CO2 absorption is approximately equivalent to biomass.
Far from plateauing in terms of carbon sequestration at a relatively young age, as was long believed, older forests, for example, over 200 years of age without intervention, contain a variety of habitats, typically continue to sequester additional carbon for many decades or even centuries, and sequester significantly more carbon than younger and managed stands, researchers write in the journal Frontiers in Forests and Global Change. One of the things that I'm finding out through this article is that when you leave Mother Nature alone and let her deal with regrowth and forest, fires and trimming down the amount of trees and all that, when Mother Nature does it herself, it's a natural progression. What we're doing is we're violating the integrity of the timetable of these lands, like we're cutting things down. We're assuming that the younger trees are more viable to absorb CO2. I mean, it's like we're fools.
Yeah, we're
fools.
And we think we know something. But even if old trees are continuing to draw down carbon dioxide, what happens when a tree dies? Current carbon accounting assumes that all the carbon from dead wood is released back into the atmosphere again. Removing forests, thinning, and burning them to produce energy is therefore viewed as better than leaving them on the forest floor to rot.
Indeed, biomass is in a low carbon economy. A report produced in November 2018 by the UK Committee on Climate Change states that, quote, unharvested, the maintenance of these carbon stocks in perpetuity is essential to ensure that the sequestered carbon does not re-enter the atmosphere.
It's like Mother Nature knows what to do. Whenever we put our hands in something, we end up messing it up because we think we understand things, but we don't. We really don't. We're just like messing everything up. However, Sturman argues that this fails to take account of the entire system holistically. See, we look at things in segments. We don't look at the bigger picture. And that's the way medicine is, how we do medicine. We don't look at the whole body and how it works as a system. We look at fragments. Okay, we're going to give you this pill for this, not knowing that, okay, it's going to mess up the remainder of the ecosystem, which is within us, our nervous system, cardiovascular system, so forth and so on. Same thing is with Mother Earth. We need to consider the carbon stored in the soil too. Removing and burning waste wood lowers the source of carbon for forest soils. This allows soils to become net sources of carbon to the atmosphere as bacterial and fungal respiration continue to release soil carbon into the atmosphere, he says. When you start messing with minerals and elements and things of that nature, it affects us because we're breathing in this thing. It affects every one of our systems. It's like a dance that we do with Mother.
Yeah, it's like a sequoia tree. Like we found out when we were visiting some of those really beautiful old stands of forest remaining sequoias, or redwoods actually, and sequoias. Although they die, they provide a certain type of soil for the new undergrowth that is giving them the ability to replenish and to grow in a healthy manner. We think that just because a tree rots and dies and falls down and it's like, oh, it's no longer viable, but we don't know what impact it's having on the soil around it and all the plants and the trees and all the animals that use it to burrow themselves. You know, we look at the cactus here, you know, we're like, oh man, they're killing the cactus, but that's all part of the nature's, you know, way.
Yeah.
You know,
It's like a dance, you know, it's being done.
Mary Booth, an ecosystem ecologist and director of the Partnership for Policy Integrity in Pelham, Massachusetts, shares Sturman's concerns. In 2017, she used a model to calculate the net emissions impact, the difference between combustion emissions and decomposition emissions, divided by the combustion emissions when forestry residues are burned for energy. It is the percentage of combustion emissions you should count as being additional, quote unquote, to the CO2 atmosphere would see if the residues were just left to decompose, she explains.
Her calculations reveal that even if the pellets are made from forestry residues rather than the whole tree, combustion produces a net emission impact of 55 to 79% after 10 years. Even after 40 years, her model shows that net emissions are still 25 to 50% greater than direct emissions. Like Sturman, both concludes that it takes many decades to repay the carbon debt, and she concludes that biomass energy can't be considered carbon neutral in a time frame that is meaningful for climate change mitigation.
Booth was so concerned by what she found that she coordinated a lawsuit against the EU in March of 2019, challenging its treatment of forest biomass as a climate-friendly renewable fuel. Our position is that policies which should count biogenic carbon emissions and burning forest wood for fuel should not be eligible for renewable energy subsidies, says Booth. That means dollar signs, money. Currently, she's waiting to hear if the court will accept the case.
And that's why, you know, what you read earlier today about their protesting. Of course, they're like, it's going to cut in our pocketbooks. We can't have this. This is going to shine the truth, and people are going to know that we're scammers, you know. So, I mean, that's the take I'm taking it. So, but even if biomass energy isn't 100% carbon neutral, there may still be a place for it in the energy mix. Currently, around 2/3 of renewable energy in Denmark is provided by biomass, and it plays a vital role in keeping district heating systems running, particularly when the wind fails to blow. Well, in 2018, Scott Benson in Copenhagen calculated that carbon debt and payback time for a combined heat and power generation plant in Denmark. His results suggested that the carbon debt was paid back after just 1 year, and that after 12 years, greenhouse gas emissions were halved relative to continued coal combustion. These numbers are vastly different in the 40 plus years of payback time estimated by Sturman. So what makes Danish biomass energy different to that kind of process seen at Drax?
Scott Benson explains that there are a number of key differences. In this Danish study, the plant burns wood chips rather than pellets, which reduces processing energy. Furthermore, the wood is sourced locally from mixed forests in a cold, temperate region, which have different growing characteristics from trees in a warm, temperate region. And the energy it produces is maximized, producing both heat for local houses and electricity. Obviously, we shouldn't cut down all forests just to burn them for energy purposes, but as long as we can harvest biomass in a way that doesn't permanently jeopardize the forest carbon storage and its ability to grow, then it does make scientific and climatic sense to use biomass to displace fossil fuel resources, says Scott Benson. He believes that calculating the carbon payback time for a specific supply chain can play a significant role in helping to fine-tune the management practices and minimize emissions from individual biomass energy plants.
Let's see which one we got here.
kind of long.
Yeah. So anyway, you guys get the gist of what biomass actually is. Um, but the give takeaway of it, but even if living trees can claw back these carbon dioxide emissions relatively quickly, there is a danger in front loading our emission in this way. Regrowth is not certain, says Sturman, and forest land may be converted to other use such as pastures, agricultural land, or development. And even if it remains as forest, wildfires, insect damage, disease, and other ecological stresses, including climate change itself, may limit or prevent regrowth, so that the carbon debt incurred by biomass energy is never repaid. So it's not a really good thing, you know.
I just think that there's so much that us humans don't know about our impacts and stuff when we choose to pull one little piece out of the puzzle and decide to work on it. You know, it's like we don't know what the repercussions, and a lot of these people really don't care. You know, it's like, has anyone thought about what the impacts are that we've been sucking fossil fuels out underneath the ground for over 100 years now, and what that has done to our planet? Has that had major impacts on to the sustainability of the planet itself? I mean, is that underground source of fossil fuels actually benefiting the planet, or was benefiting the planet in other ways? Are we like drawing it out from the inside? I mean, we don't really know. We just see dollar signs and we think we can just take advantage of certain things because they're so abundant. I mean, we even put a price tag on water.
That's crazy. Anyway, Brianna joins us, and I guess Phoenix AM is in the chat, but we can't see it because a while back I blocked during a chat in your chat room or something like that, and I can't seem to unblock. So
must have been your chat room.
Yeah, no, it was your. It was. I went and I blocked during the chat thing, and then if you go on her channel, and there's no way of me unblocking it or something like that. But anyway, welcome, Brianna and Phoenix I am as well. So let's see here.
It's really sad what we think that we can do, you know, without any concern or care for the overall bigger picture. You know, because what we're doing is we're looking at it from only one perspective, one dimension.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is my channel.
Man, that's your channel. So
Phoenix says, "I am beautiful day here. Text me about the Earth, and we can talk about it if you want to. Much love, my favorite brown couple." Look at those tans.
So I'm wondering how there's no way of me being it. Yeah, because when I did it back. Anyway, I found this article on one of my Facebook friends' wall, and it was in Spanish, so they had a thing about translating it. So the translation isn't perfect, but it still merits mentioning. Study reveals trees have feelings, and we've read things of that nature. I mean, it's all everything from rock to trees to mountains to ocean to everything is living, and it has energy. And
I mean, you used to have a garden growing in
one of the houses,
in Florida.
And those were my babies. You know, I would speak to them. You know, I'd spend time with them. I mean, you reap what you sow, and you see some plants, some fruit trees that don't produce really good fruit, and you see others that do. Well, the difference in trees is how much TLC are you giving that tree, how much composting are you doing for that tree, how much water you're giving it, you know, and so forth and so on. I don't understand how there are people in this planet or on this planet that do everything based on profit, and they don't care about the animals. They don't care about the living plants and trees, and they don't care about the mountains, obviously, because they literally are raping the mountains. They're fracking, they're mining, they're destroying it, all in the quest for shiny things. I mean, makes no sense
I
to
mean,
me.
we walk around this beautiful desert climate that we live in, and we see these big, huge cactus. They're called saguaros, and right now they're blooming a flower on the very tip of the top of it. Like no human can literally just, easily go up there and grab some fruit after
Right.
it turns from a flower into fruit, which we've heard it's very tasty.
Yeah.
But this was designed for a different type of wildlife, which is no longer roaming the planet anymore. The woolly mammoth, the dinosaurs,
Yeah.
There are things that, see, we don't understand nature. We are so, like, especially this modern version of human is so absolutely disconnected from its material reality of being on a planet that still is living and breathing, like it did for millions of years, that we, just because we build an asphalt road right next to us doesn't mean that nature is still doing her thing, and that's the thing that is just so incredible to me, is that we're so connected to our phones and to our social media platforms, to the stock market, to shopping, to materialism, but we are so disconnected from what really matters, what is really what we should be connected to. And because we're no longer connected to that reality, we don't know that plants are sentient beings.
Yeah.
Plants feel, plants work together in harmony, and they literally have feelings.
They do. So I think Phoenix Am said something else there.
She said they dig up the ground because they look for the ark Solomon put in a cave. So they have dug everywhere. Never worry about what they've done here.
It's criminal, really. So according to this study, trees can really feel and create bonds of love between other plants and even with their caretakers. Like I said, when I had my garden, I had fruit trees and all sorts of vegetables that I was growing, I could feel it. I look forward. I used to run like 7 miles every morning, first thing I got up, and then I would go into gardening, and it's like I could look forward to being able to put my hands in the dirt and harvest and weed and do all the things that I did to take care of that garden. It really took me to another level, and I miss it. I really do. And I think it's therapy. It's our way of connecting with Mother. It's really a way of increasing our spirituality, in my humble opinion. Anyway, plants are also living beings. It's just that they are not like us humans or animals. They can move from one place to another. They cannot speak or think either, but there are many aspects that can be quite incredible and similar to those of us.
Each person and animals even have their feelings, but this apparently does not extend to plants, or at least is what we are to believe. Science has been in charge of investigating this aspect that has generated curiosity.
So it turns out that scientists have spent years finding out about plants. There was one aspect that was ignored, until now that is, and that is that they have feelings. It was not known if they had feelings or not, and we will talk about this in this article.
This time we will share with you a rather important fact about trees and plants that may surprise you. So keep reading and find out what we have to say. What about the trees? And what do they really feel?
I don't know how many of you watched the movie Avatar, but that was very, very, find the word. It was like they sat around that tree. They respected that one particular tree. It was like, even like biblical stuff, where they talk about the tree of good and evil, the tree of knowledge, or, it's like, And I know it's a metaphor per se, but trees do have something very majestic about them. You know, when we went on our journey, that we went to that one place, that there were trees that were there for hundreds and hundreds of years, and it was just like it felt amazing. These are wonderful plants, and not only are they perfect for the oxygen they offer us, and the fact that they filter the carbon for us as well, we would like be dead. But they are also intelligent, much more than you think. They're not what many of us think, though.
Turns out that it has been investigated at the science level that trees do have feelings. And this was said before by Peter Wolleben, a German man who is also an expert in trees, where he assures that they can feel pain and even have emotions such as fear.
I mean, they've done those studies where they put electrodes and they do stuff to the trees and they could actually see them react.
Right.
The trees also like to be together and embrace each other, as they like to be well accompanied as well. They take things calmly, and he says this is because he has studied the trees and has grown with them.
Wolleben explains that trees can be friends and are capable of creating bonds, just as if they were two old men who take care of each other. They have feelings. He's also a ranger. Made a documentary called Intelligent Trees in conjunction with Susan Simard, who is an ecologist at the University of British Columbia.
They can form bonds like an old couple where one cares for the other. The trees have feelings. Those trees like being together and embrace them. They love the company. They can feel pain and have emotions like fear.
According to this tree documentary, Dr. Andras Zelinsky from Aarhus University in Denmark laser scanned several trees and shrubs of 22 different plants in order to measure the exact location of the branches and leaves, and it was observed that some trees, in the nights, its branches rise and fall several times during the night, being like a heartbeat or something.
Until some time ago, this was not known because the movement are smooth and subtle, but now it is a reality. And that's amazing, you know?
Really is.
We have filters, and we believe that if we don't see something that's not happening, but the speed of something happening may be too slow or too fast for our eyes to actually, view. It's.
I thought that this was a really interesting article. I mean, it kind of spoke to me because we're talking about the trees, right? And to the people of our ancestry, the Taínos, they were very connected to Mother Earth, to nature, and to this specific tree called the La Ceiba tree. And I don't know, you want to share this? I mean, it's an old folklore story from Taíno history. The portal of La Ceiba. That was the first time Mani'o experienced anger. Desperation replaced the peace that had always crowned her and had been replaced by desperation. Fear was an unfamiliar and cruel threat that was overwhelming her, while she laid down under the colossal and ancient tree that would always bring her comfort. Mani'o stared at the glowing stars with a broken heart.
She grew up in small town of La Cordillera Central of the beautiful island they called Borinque. As the daughter of Abe, the Kaseki, which means chief of the Indians Taino tribe, Manillo was always surrounded by love and joy, remembering with nostalgia those years when her island was a magical paradise. A river of tears inundated her irritated eyes during the lonely night.
While she tightly embraced the huge trunk of the mighty tree, she contemplated the movement of the breeze, rhythmically flowing with the shadows of that night. A chilly silence penetrated into the deepest part of the forest, quietly staring at her. The owl that always kept her company was reflecting in his smoky eyes the pain that was tormenting her soul.
Manillo learned at a very early age that the sacred tree known as La Sabia, was the portal to higher spiritual realms. As a little girl, she liked to spend hours visiting the primitive tree, transisting to a higher dimension through the magical channel of its roots. Just like Avatar, right? She was able to communicate with the great spirits, gaining the wisdom in a short time that could take many lives for others to acquire.
Recognizing Mani'o had been blessed with a very special gift. Alonso, who was also the Bohique, priest or medicine man of the tribe, became her mentor on her 6th birthday.
Preparing the beautiful Indian princess for her life mission, he taught her that there were 5 directions in this world. In addition to north, south, east, and west, the 5th one was an etheric tube that went from the bottom of the ocean to the earth and into the center of the skies. This direction reached out from the roots of the tree and the great branches that were supported by the heavens.
Her keen ability to communicate with the great spirits was so impressive. However, upon her 15th birthday, Mani'o had a premonition that frightened her. In search of some answers, she visited La Ceiba, hearing that big changes were rapidly approaching her.
A couple of days later, the Spaniards invaded Borinquin, transforming their beautiful island into a prison when they colonized the land. That was the first time the Taínos experienced hatred towards the Spaniard. The warmth and trust they offered the Spaniard soldiers quickly vanished as the Indians realized that the Spanish took their freedom away.
Shortly after, a Spanish captain named Hernan arrived at the island. He noticed the physical beauty of Mani'o. Trying to conquer her, he brought her exceptional gifts. However, her heart belonged to the right hand of her father, Caguano, decided to confront Hernan to warn him that Mani'o would never be his, even though he had no intention to attack the Spaniards. One of Hernan's soldiers killed him.
As a result, a war between the Taínos and the Spaniards took place. Mani'o's heart was shattered into pieces when they brought Caguano's dead body to her. With only a few months away from their wedding, she had been joyously planning their big day.
During the war between the Taínos and the Spaniards, many other Indians died too. Fearing for her parents' life, she went to the magical tree for help. "I am so angry," Mani'o cried, out with the shadows in her eyes. "What answers would you like to get tonight?" La Ceiba asked her with a compelling and compassionate voice.
How can I go off this emotion? Or how could I let go of this emotions? Mani'o implored, feeling abandoned for the first time in her life. Fear is such a powerful emotion, but in reality, it's just a perception that the limited mind creates. The tree said with a warm and soothing tone, "Why is Yokahu allowing so much misery?"
You made a pact with your soul before you incarnated this life. Deep down, you know that pain can strengthen your spirit. You agreed to go on this journey so you could learn and teach the lesson. When you were much younger, you were able to reach higher dimensions through me. Center your soul in love. And once you do it, you will understand that fear is the opposite emotion of faith and hope, La Ceiba stated, reassuring her that even though she was feeling weak and hopeless, the spirits of the Spaniards had a long way to go to gain consciousness.
So why did Caguano have to die? Help me understand why this was supposed to happen. Mani'o protested, her wisdom blinded by the anguish of losing her beloved Caguano. Momentarily, La Ceiba's branches led her to the realm of the Great Spirit in the heavens, becoming a portal to the mystery of death. The spirit of Caguano reached out to her.
My beloved Mani'o, I will always love you. I am sorry for leaving you, but you must continue with your mission, Caguano's spirit declared through the gentle movement of the branches.
My mission? What do you mean? Because of me, you and other members of the tribe died. Mani'o's reply denoted desperation. There is always a reason for everything in life. Yokahu allowed this to happen because our children will have to learn to survive in a new world. Kagwano's spirit firmly stated while the gentle breeze cleaned her tears.
What children are you talking? Now that you're dead, we won't be able to have children. Life is a continuous cycle. Everything happens simultaneously. That is why time is only a perception. This moment is the only reality. Even though I was killed in this dimension, there are others where we are together, already married, with children. Life is magical. As she heard Kagwano's spirit say those words, Manihio was able to see his loving and hopeful smile.
That is how I felt until the Spaniards showed up to kill you, Manio said, desperately, clinging to his spirit. The Spaniards are here to teach us that there is a new dimension where fear and hate is very powerful. It is your responsibility as a spiritual master you are becoming to show others who we are. You learn through the La Saibia that we are powerful spiritual beings inside a human body.
I can't understand why this had to happen. The pain you are experiencing is blinding your wisdom. But once you find the comfort and healing, you will be able to understand that even if our tribes disappear, our legacy will always survive.
By why do we deserve this? How can I help others to understand why I can't understand myself? What happened to our magic?
The magic is found within. No one can take that away from you. We learned through Huracan that there is evil. Even though we feared it, we didn't experience it. We are very lucky to be Tainos because our consciousness allows us to surpass the illusion of this third dimension we are facing with the Spaniards.
That's very interesting there that certain tribes, their consciousness surpasses the illusion. They're able to see above it while other people, like the Spaniards and a lot of other on this planet, are very blinded by this illusion. So even though Manio couldn't change the new world where the colonizers are destroying their dreams, she was able to understand that she could change her reality from within. With the guidance of La Ceiba, Manillo shared her wisdom and knowledge with her people and mastered her ability to transit from one world to another in the spirit world.
While the Spanish soldiers claimed victory in the new world they discovered, the Tainos began to disappear rapidly from this earth by ascending to a higher plane. During that time of oppression, the ancient and sacred tree, also known as the Tree of Life, became the portal to an invisible world that reigned in the most sublime and magical lands of Borinquen.
That is a very, I can't even find the words. I mean, there's so much in this particular storyline. So much. So, let's see.
There really is. I mean, I find that whenever I gravitate to trying to justify the old belief system that I was brought up to believe in and to live with, I read this kind of, conversation that is so pure in its intent and is so like connected to me as a Taino, that it really speaks to the truth. Like, where is the truth? It's like you find it wherever it really resides.
Exactly. And Marcy says, I took shrooms as a teen and everything was breathing living things. I have believed it ever since that one experience. It all hits me like, wow, everything is alive. It wasn't just the shrooms talking. Exactly. And I've also taken several mushroom and other substances that allow your third eye to open and to almost like it removes the veil from your eyes and you could actually see what really is. And things all have a heartbeat. Everything pulsates. Even the floor, everything is like always moving and pulsating. It's just a magical experience altogether that really allows you to see the spiritual world,
Phoenix says they cry when you cut them. You should pray for them before you cut them or anything else that grows here. Honor it. I do. You two are a direct line to this because of your DNA. Real sure of this, by the way. Mark hears the trees. Lynna sees them through her eyes, the beauty of them. Yeah. The living tree in the garden, they remember her importance to this. Ask the atoms what they did to her.
There's so much that we haven't been told. And as long as we continue to live this third world or 3D reality as reality, quote unquote, and forget what we're really here for, we will continue to be blinded. We will continue to create this karma that's just never ending, and I believe that now is the time. I mean, you could feel it, you could taste it, you could palpate it, there is massive change happening. And
I think, yeah, we were meant to not exist on this dimension only. It's like the cultures were so connected to, indigenous cultures were so connected to that other dimension. And that other dimension, although first world countries and modern Western civilization would have you think that they have all the advanced information and that they know best and everything, it's like they're so blind to the things that really matter. And people lived on this earth, but they also lived in another dimension while being here. They didn't reside here all the time. They went in and out as they saw fit.
And
right?
many of the tribes, just like the Taino tribe, or they really didn't fall for the material world. They knew that wasn't the true world. That was just like an illusion.
They saw those materials not for anything profitable, but just as tools in order to allow them to grow and stuff. I think, like we watched a documentary, and some of the indigenous cultures had brought offerings to the different places in the land, and they buried gold and precious metals into the ground, which weren't supposed to be disturbed and taken away from that ground. But they didn't see that as like some kind of like monetary value. They just saw it as an essential gift that they needed to make to the land that had value.
Well, they call it payment because they see Mother Earth as a living organism that is required for the connections of the other planets and the other universes. Just like nature works together, that is, there's some sort of relationship, some sort of dance, which many don't see. They only see self pleasure. They see what's in it for me, but they don't look at the bigger picture. And when we start just self stroking or just rely on our own gratification, we miss the mark of what we are here to do. And we get stuck in this physical reality, this matrix, and not in a good way.
Well, just think about it. Like a computer chip is made of silica sand, right? It's actual sand from the ground. And it has the ability to create the things that we have done as a society with computing and things. There's so much that we don't know. And we just took something, corrupted it, perverted it, and it's got that much power. Imagine if we were to really work together with nature and respect her and just be a part of her and to reverence her and to give her, that respect.
Exactly.
Instead of violating her.
Raping her, literally. So I can't read what she says.
So she said, "No thanks, that is the wheel. I am off of it."
Yeah.
Very good, because that is what happened. Black holes, that is how your moon was flown here. Forget what they taught you and go back to simpleness.
She says, meditation is the best together, even better. And so let it all go, because God is inside you, your shield. It is very cool, by the way. Wait for it. It's fast. Faith in the self. Mark, be true.
Be true to thyself and be free. Follow nothing. God is you always. Be human. Help out, but not hard. Huh?
Yeah, and that's a very interesting, how there's some new age group that believe that we are gods. It's not that we are gods. We are God. We are part of God, and everything's connected. Everything has a heartbeat and a consciousness. And it's like Phoenix says, let's see, follow nothing, be true, be free to thyself, help out. I mean, it's like a dance. We're here to do that dance. We're not here for selfish reasons. We're here as a collective to be able to help one another and help the planet, and the planet then helps other. I mean, because it's like a web,
Right.
Marcy
says, wait, so should I not be using my crystals for healing? I figured it was here for us naturally.
There's different schools of thoughts with that. I mean, I think that when something's meant for you, it calls you out. It's like you don't choose it; it chooses you. And crystals are definitely very healing. They do have the Mother Earth energy that's very healing. We're not meant to like grab everything we see. It's like there's like this responsibility that comes from what is here on this planet and what we make our own. If it's meant for you, it will call out to you and it will choose you. And it is very healing, definitely is very healing. Yeah. Marcy says quartz and such, they help with the heart troubles and pain. Yeah, quartz are amazing. There's so many amazing crystals and rocks and things on the earth. But again, we can't just use it for our own selfish purposes. There's a collective, and there's a, what's the word I'm using for? There's a resonance vibration that it's like in that documentary where we're not meant to just grab the gold for our own sake of gold. I mean, it's like the planet will let you know if you're open to her message, what belongs to you and what does not belong to you, and the purposes for it.
Yeah, I think that it's like this. It's this weaving that we have with nature and all created living things, and seen and unseen things, animate and inanimate objects, and how we interact with those things by not just taking in a possessive way of thinking, but taking in a respectful way that would allow it to be, it's like a seed is eaten by a bird in a tree, and it is flown across like hundreds of miles to be planted in another location. It's not just eating it it's got to sustain itself, right? They've got to live, but it knows that what it's doing is actually benefiting that weaving process that happens within the planet, planting life in another location that wouldn't have that tree, So I think that what we have lost a lot of times is that, something's in the way, we cut it down. Like I remember when we got our fifth wheel, and we were in Portland, and I felt horrible, but we had to hack a lilac tree branches down so that we could accommodate our rig in that space. And that's not how humans should be interacting with our environment. We shouldn't be just ripping things out because they're in the way, quote unquote. We should be living with things. We should be coexisting with those things,
working in harmony.
So Phoenix says, the cross is God. You have a piece of God in you. This will protect you. Faith, blind faith, be human. They were all about fear. This is scary, but you are always safe. Loud, too. The church says it is bad, They tell you to build a closet in your house too. Your closet is inside of you. God is in you. God talks to you in dreams only. Anything else is evil. Rocks are healing.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll never forget that time that we went out to just right there in Silver City, and I said, "That's not. They're not alive and everything." And you're like, "Really? Come on over here." And we walked in between like two like in a little small canyon, and I put my hands on
Yeah, because I
the
told you, go ahead,
rocks,
put your hands like this.
and I felt this pulsating electromagnetic coursing energy going through one arm, through my body, and out to the other side. And it was like you felt like you were a conduit for this energy. And it was beautiful. It was a beautiful reality.
Yeah, it's, we have been so put asleep by this material world that we fail to understand that we are spirit above everything else, and we are here for a reason. We're not here to collect gadgets, money, diplomas. We're here to evolve our spirits and be placed in situations where we are to understand what the right path is versus the wrong path. And even if you pick a wrong path, that you're able to learn through that path that you take, for growth, spiritual growth.
I mean, we're not here to grow an economy. We're not here to have a job. We're not here to have a career. We're not here to make a name for ourselves. We're not here for fame. We're not here for fortune. We're here to love this planet and to love everyone in it.
Exactly. And evolve and grow as a consciousness, as a collective consciousness that we are. I mean, I believe that everything that's happening now, it's to take people and wake them up. There's one of the things that I've learned, there's so much confusion out there, and it's done on purpose. You have a camp that doesn't believe that this is real, that this is just all for government control. And then you've got another camp that, believes another thing, and so forth and so on. And it's like, to me, this is just a time to really understand that we need to cut ties with the material world as much as possible. Do not be of it. Do not be of this world. It's not going to bring you anything positive. You can't eat money. The fiat system cannot last forever. You need to increase your skills. Now is the time to learn how to find what foods you can eat that's in your environment, what food you can grow. Learn how to fast so you're not dependent on food daily. You may not have food every day. Learn to walk long distances because you may need to do that. Learn to be in the sun and grab that energy from the sun that will give you life. It's an amazing time we're living in. Totally amazing times. And you just really need to go within, So, what else? I wanted to, I'm seeing every channel, every magazine outlet, everything is really talking about how the Pentagon has releases 3 UFO videos taken by U.S. Navy pilots. So, like before they were like calling it all conspiracy and lies, and now it's like, there's something that either they're getting ready to do the disclosure thing or, and that's another confusion. People say, well, aliens are really demons or angels. What is it? Is there, like I said, confusing times, a lot of confusing times, because I've always believed in aliens, and I thought that the whole demon and angel thing is just, religious type of connotation of what species from other planets are. But we'll find out soon enough, soon enough. So, Rihanna says something here. Let's see.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think so.
No. Okay, no, I'm not reading that. So yeah. So definitely exciting times to come ahead. I mean, it's like living in a movie. It's like we're creating our own movie. And how it's going to end. Nobody knows. But all you have to do is like be in the frequency of love, be out in nature, you know, grow your spirit, grow your garden, grow your love.
Phoenix says, yin and yang. It's called balance.
Yeah.
Meditation is how you find God.
Yeah.
Let everything go and free yourself from its weight. Then look around you and you will see this difference. It is government control and their lease is up on this land. We can talk.
Lease is up. I feel it. I feel it that, you know, as much as they're going to go kicking and screaming, you know, the time's up. Really. That story that you read there from our ancestors, you know, I mean, that really touched my heart. There's so much in that.
Yeah.
So much. It was
See,
just,
what we don't understand is that what tree is it that, or trees are they that they're cutting down in the process of wanting to get biomass energy or a way of making a cattle farm? I mean, what magical, beautiful, enlightening things are they taking away from us discovering by doing
the portals
by doing what they're doing?
Because she talked about the portal as she would sit there, meditate under the tree, ask the trees questions, and the tree will answer in the spirit of the trees.
Yeah.
You know, and it's so.
I mean, what they do in Avatar? Remember, they took that tree and they destroyed
it, and that was like billions of years of people's soul in that tree.
It was life.
It was life. Tree of life. Totally.
Oh, Marcy said, I saw that yesterday how they released info about UFOs from 2015. I feel it's time the gods are coming back and they have no choice but to disclose alien life.
I think so too. There's two camps. One that says the disclosure is the government's own like UFOs, and you know, I don't know if you ever saw, what was it, V for no, what was that show that
V,
and they came down, and I mean, there's just so much confusion. For the first time in my life, I'm like torn between all these different theories, and you know, I keep meditating and trying to ask, you know, my higher self, what is the right answer? And I'm still not being given a direct answer. There's, you know, I don't know why, but you know, there's a part of me that believes that there are good aliens out there that have been watching from afar and kind of rooting for us to evolve and grow. You know, this whole concept about demons and angels and that biblical stuff, that I don't know, that just
Phoenix says evil comes first for evil, so don't worry, nothing flies in or out, and they hide under your feet. Cannot hide from this. Natives call this time to play cowboys and aliens. They let them in. Like attracts like.
Yeah.
Positive attracts positive, negative attracts negative.
Mhm.
It's nothing personal
No.
when people attract the things that they attract.
Yeah.
You know, evil will attract evil.
Yeah.
So whatever is evil will pull evil to it. Whatever is good will pull the good to it. So it's like Phoenix says, there's nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
You know, if you know what polarity you are,
Yeah.
you have nothing to fear.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah. So Marcy, I definitely think that there's going to be a disclosure very, very soon. That's like the next card on their table. And now whether it's the make-believe ones or the real ones, because I think that, you know, the government has some cards under their sleeves, you know, but we'll see. We'll see what is going to take place. I mean, I've always had the dream, a reoccurring dream of a bunch of UFOs coming in the sky, and it's always nighttime, and people are always like going crazy, screaming, you know, and they're scared. And you can't have fear. Fear is not the way to go. That's not the energy that you want to emit at all. You have to be calm so that you can listen to God, your higher self, whatever, and so you could be in a safe place when everything is going to take place.
Phoenix says, we're never left alone. We are watched.
Yeah.
She says, I don't follow the Bible. It was brought here by men of self-given letters. Sorry.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty much it.
That's it for today.
That's it for today. I was gonna mention some. I figure these bugs keep like little gnats, but I'm not even gonna bother with that negativity. That's one of the things that I've really am noticing, that sometimes, you know, I want to respond to something on Twitter or even on Facebook, and if it's like really negative and it's not going to bring any positivity, then I've learned to just like, it's not worth it. It's like something new within me. You know, it's like if it's going to bring something positive and it's going to enlighten, then yes, but not just for the sake of like creating disorder.
Yeah, it's like we have nothing to prove. And we get our share of hateful, you know, trolling comments and stuff every now and then on our YouTube channel. And it's like either you can react to it or you can consider the source and say, you know, these people, this is their standard.
Yeah.
This is how they operate. They think that life is about criticizing others and telling others what they are and what they, you know, deserve.
Exactly.
And, you know, I mean, when someone's like threatening you and saying that you should be eradicated for just being who you are, you have a very good idea of who these people are.
You just got to send them
and
love.
Reacting to that is no benefit to you because you know where they're coming from.
Sending them love, you know, hopefully they'll heal. It's part of where they're at, you know, and hopefully we all grow and evolve and go on the path that's going to lead us, you know, to wherever it is that we have to go. Marcy says, another great stream, guys. Thank you. And own the scene.
Thanks for the show. Much needed focus on positivity. And you are both glowing.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much. I think Phoenix, I am had something else to say.
Live, love, have fun, let it go. I know things you don't know. Custard. Have a great evening.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Stay safe, stay in love, meditate. I mean, I'm finding, you know, that even if it's 10 minutes, it is so powerful, so amazingly powerful. And I'm starting back. You know, I had stopped it and I'm starting back in the meditating route. And it's really an amazing thing.
Phoenix says, we never die. So have some faith. You can die to this, but 20 minutes later, you breathe elsewhere.
Yeah.
Let it go. Be free.
Yeah, I believe that full-heartedly. Definitely do. All right, guys, be well. We love you. But remember to always love yourselves too. Bye-bye. See you soon.